Hi, today I'll be talking to you about my F&P final evaluation. I'll be diving into everything that I went through throughout my F&P in both pre and post production and also during production as well. So I'm going to start off with my proposal. When the F&P initially got introduced to us, I had the idea of bringing the subject of mental health into my work as it holds such an importance in today's society and in Gen Z as a collective as well, which I thought was very important because I wanted to do something that was more targeted towards a Gen Z audience rather than millennials or different age ranges. So to start off, my first idea was to do a documentary relating to capitalism. When I say relating to capitalism, I mean more on the side of showing the two sides of London. When I say two sides, I mean showing the poor sides and also the rich sides as well. My reasoning for this was just seeing everything on social media platforms about the struggles people have to deal with in their day-to-day life. For example, paying bills and struggles to find housing during inflation. I thought it was important to do a documentary to spread awareness on the topic as well. My second idea that I had was a short film involving mental health called The 5 Stages of Grief and how it can affect their day-to-day life. My reasoning for this idea was due to the rise in mental illness in the past 5 years, more specifically in Gen Z. The statistics have risen so high compared to the last 10 years, and it's an important matter that I think everyone should be informed more on and know more about. So this idea was based on a teenage girl who has recently lost her mum but is struggling to accept the fact that her mum is not coming back. And I wanted to include aspects of mental health and both grief, and just to show how someone will deal with grief and how mental health can also be brought into that as well. So during this time, when I had written my initial ideas, I conducted a focus group for my class to gather opinions on my work, which resulted to me picking the second idea. My reasoning behind this was the fact that initially I wanted to do my project based on mental health, and I believe it is something very important, and I wanted to show that in my work. Although I had my idea planned, I kept making changes to the idea as days went by. I resulted in changing my main character into a girl instead of a boy because actually initially I wanted to do a boy. But my reasoning for changing this was that I was unable to get an actor in the time, unfortunately. This played on my problem-solving skills, but I managed to handle it right. As a result, I was happy with my final decision and I made a big change, but I was still happy with it. So in regards to writing a script, I didn't want my characters to have a script as they aren't speaking throughout, so I thought it was unnecessary for me to write a script in specific for my characters. So what I've done is that I wrote a script for myself as opposed to writing it for my characters, which was just a poem about grief and how it affects people both differently and at the same time. Furthermore, I believe that writing the script was very helpful for me as I was doing the voiceover. So on to the next section is my contextual research. As my project is a short film, I thought it was important for me to start my contextual research with similar products to my F&P. I started off with my research and finding short films that have similar aspects to mine. I watched these short films alongside gathering information and inspiration for my film while doing so. I looked into genres of depression, grief, anxiety, and drama to help navigate which ones have a similar concept to my idea. So moving on to the next section of my research. The next section of my research was to do with mental illness, of course, because my whole film is based on mental illness. So mental illness is a collective. This includes depression and anxiety. I researched what they were, how they affect people, and the difference in statistics in comparison to 5 years ago. After the statistics after COVID. I started off with depression. I thought it was important to get a better insight and understanding on mental illness as a collective for me to therefore produce a film on the matter. I spoke about how depression can be helped, the statistics, and what could be traumatic causes for it. I then dived into topics of anxiety and went on to do similar research as for what I did for depression, such as the statistics and just the causes of anxiety and stuff like that. So continuing on with my research, the next research I'd done was on the 5 stages of grief. Of course, my film is called The 5 Stages of Grief, so I thought it was very important for me to put in my contextual research what the 5 stages of grief are, and just give a deeper explanation on what they are as well. So the 5 stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. At the end of my contextual research with the resources... I ended my contextual research with the sources of inspiration when relating to colour palettes and shots, while also looking at similar work. One of my inspirations is from the show Fool Me Once on Netflix. While watching it, the colour palettes and shots caught my eye and made me want to project those into my work for my FMP. So the thing that I liked most about Fool Me Once was the colour grading in particular, because the colour themes were very much the blues, the dark themes, and just was very expressive with their facial expressions, just the shots that they'd done, very face-on shots to show the expressions of the characters, which I really liked. So in conclusion of my contextual research, this is what I've researched. I dived into all the topics I needed to and gathered enough information for me to have created the project I wanted to. Doing this research helped me massively as it gave me a better insight into the subject at hand for my FMP and provided me with the inspiration for any future products I'm going to do in the future. So on to the next part of my final evaluation is my audience research. So regarding my audience research, I aim to mainly look into statistics that are from after COVID-19 due to the rise in mental illness and suicides after lockdown took place. So in specific, after COVID-19, there was a huge rise in suicides and mental illness for, in specific, Gen Z, which was obviously important to research because my target audience is for Gen Z. The key terms of my audience research was the statistics, looking at the difference in percentage to mental illness in age groups and comparing them to the suicide rates from the same year. The percentage of Gen Z suffering with mental illness, specifically depression and anxiety, comparing the percentage between genders, looking through articles and websites to find which age group my film should be more targeted towards based on studies and statistics, which of course resulted in Gen Z. Alongside this, I also researched music that Gen Z are into, what the statistics say that Gen Z are more interested in, and then I did portray this into my work, of course. All the information I had gathered therefore allowed me to make strategic decisions when it came down to production and the editing process, on who would be most interested in my film, basically. As a collective, this research helped me massively and helped me gain a better understanding on different opinions and perspectives on the subject of mental health and grief. In conclusion, doing audience research was one of the most important parts of my research process, since it gave me an insight as to who would be more interested in my film and what different additions I can include to make it more suitable for my audience. So on to my visual research. For my visual research, I wanted to look into multiple different things. I started off with looking at different colour schemes that I can reflect into my work. I looked at various different colours such as blues, reds, purples, to be able to insinuate which ones would match my film and the emotions that would be including in my films. So of course, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to project colours to match the moods of my characters in my film. So when it came to visual research, that is something that I did strike my focus on more. So below here, you can see my visual research for framing, emotions, and visual inspiration is just here. So you can see all the colours. Onto my planning and production. To begin my planning process, I had initial plans as to how I wanted my film to be set out, who I wanted my actors to be, and what equipment I wanted to use to get the perfect visual representation of what I wanted my film to be. Starting with the budget, I spent a lot of time researching different camera equipment that would be most suitable for my film by checking online, checking reviews to see the different options for me. After doing a lot of research, I soon realised that I didn't have enough of a budget to purchase or rent a camera out. As a result of this, I gained access to the camera equipment from college, which I rented out closer to the time I was going to be in production. This was because it was more efficient and more affordable for me. Although I didn't purchase a camera, I did still do budget research just so that I myself can have knowledge on just how much camera equipment should be, and so that I can get a better insight on that for future projects and even just for this FMP as well. For my production paperwork, I struggled ever so slightly due to the issues I was having with choosing locations to film at. When I began planning my FMP, I had plans of filming at my local cemetery to capture the feeling of what my film was going to be about. After many thoughts, I decided I was going to film in the cemetery I was not going to film in the cemetery due to difficulties I was having with schedule clashes with my talent, and thought for convenience it would be better for us to film inside. So when it came to schedule clashes, it got very frustrating for me. So I just told my talent, it's okay, we can just film at my house. It will be more convenient for you. All of this stuff. So after running into issues with my talent and her pulling out of filming, when I found a new actress, we resulted in actually filming in the cemetery. So everything turned out in my favour at the end. But to begin with, I was having difficulties with production and filming in locations I wanted to film in. And here's my location recce's. So I only had 2 locations for my FMP, which was my own choice. I felt like as though if I went to all different locations, I feel like I'd just be doing it for the sake of it and not actually doing it for because I wanted to. I feel like for my film in particular, it was more about self-isolation and more about spending time by yourself while grieving and mental illness. And most of those things do lead back to self-isolation and being by yourself. So majority of the stuff was filmed in my house, which you can see here in my location recce. But I did also film a scene in the graveyard. So those are my location recce's. So on to problem solving. When I'm referring to problem solving for my FMP, I ran into major faults while in both pre and post production. When looking for actors for my film, I initially wanted my main character to be a boy. But as it got closer to the time of filming, I realised that I could work more around with a female main character, as a main factor of my film was the close relationship between a child and their mother. So my reasoning behind changing this is that I was unable to hire actors, therefore finding an actress to play the mother role would have been a struggle. But having a mother role in the film was a crucial part that I wanted for my film. As a result of this, my friend has acting experience and volunteered to help me out on my film, which then helps me problem solve and sort everything out. As time went on and production started, mine and my talent schedules were clashing massively, resulting in me not having enough footage to start editing process with 3 weeks until deadline was due in. Bear in mind, I still had to do a rough edit. I had so much editing to do, but I had basically no footage because of the schedule clashes. I was asking to go in production all the time, but she was just unable to do it. So during this time, I began to become frustrated and panicking because I was unsure whether I would have enough time to film and edit before my deadline came up. After time went by, my talent told me that she was unable to carry on filming because of the fact she had exams coming up. So as a result of this, I was left frustrated. I noted it down in my problem solving log. I was just talking to my teachers about it, trying to problem solve. So continuing, while I was having these problems, I was tracking this down in my problem solving log. After many thoughts and discussions, I resorted to using my mom as my main talent. Although she has no acting experience, we worked hard to make my FMP look as best and authentic as it possibly can. In conclusion, problem solving became a huge factor during my time filming my FMP, as I ran into many faults and errors. So noting down the issues I was having helped me brainstorm how I would end up fixing them, as you can see in the picture below. Moving on to the next issue I had during production was related to quality of my footage. During a particular scene, I used my phone to film due to it being a bird's eye view scene, and there was no other way for me to film it. But I was adamant on filming that scene because I wanted to push myself and I wanted to get the different angles and get the harder angles as well. So after finishing that weekend of production, the following week when I went to upload my footage onto my Google Drive, the footage was stating that it was filmed in 960x on my camera rather than 1080x. So after hours of trying to retrieve the footage, my teacher did manage to fix it by adding it to CapCut and making the quality maximum HD. So these issues as a collective left me with many problems when it came to editing and gathering the audience feedback. So on to my next section of my FMP final evaluation. I want to go on to filming and editing. So my strengths below, throughout both production and post-production, I realised many strengths that I have and have developed throughout have helped me massively with my projects. One of my biggest strengths I had throughout my FMP was my storytelling. Storytelling is a huge part of what my film is about, as the voiceover is telling the story rather than the characters involved. Therefore, I had to ensure that my script was written out correctly and efficiently so the audience can understand what my film is about and the story behind it. Not only that, but also so the audience can connect with what they are watching. Another strength I had throughout production was my problem solving. Throughout both filming and editing, I ran into multiple difficulties, which led back to me using problem solving as the solution for me. Each problem I ran into, I found a solution for it, and it all worked out. So on to weaknesses while filming and editing. One of my biggest weaknesses was my organisation skills. These weaknesses showed massively throughout my FMP as I ran into many faults that led back to organisation. Starting off with equipment. When it came down to booking equipment, I left it way too late, and as a result of this, I had to use a faulty camera to film half of my production, which therefore left me with faulty footage when it came down to editing. This also became a problem when it went down to editing because each clip had a different quality. This is just one reason why I have to work more into my organisation skills in order for me to structure my work rather than it being all over the place. So on to audience feedback. So unfortunately, I didn't have any time to get audience feedback due to me filming my FMP so late because of my talent backing out, as I mentioned in my problem solving. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to gather enough feedback besides from the feedback I got from in person, where I'd done a little focus group in my lesson where my classmates were helping me and just giving me good advice. And finally, onto my conclusion. So in conclusion, throughout the collective of my FMP, I had to overcome a number of challenges during this project, starting with the issues I had with my actor. This issue was a huge part of why I had so many complications throughout, because it resulted in multiple offspring issues, such as not being able to produce my rough edit and not gathering enough feedback from my peers. The next issue I'm referring to is to do with the quality issues I had with filming on my phone. When filming using my phone, I had an issue when uploading it onto my Google Drive because the quality was completely different compared to what it looked like on my phone. Although this issue was fixed, it still resulted in time management issues. In addition to this, next time I'm going to choose a reliable actor to help me with my projects in order for my project to have minor faults or no faults as a collective, and using a camera at all times to ensure quality throughout remains the same. Because I feel as though, although it wasn't a huge hiccup in my work, I do feel like it could have been prevented and saved me so much time and helped me with my time management as well. I believe I met majority of my proposal aims I had in my UAL proposal. Although there were many changes I had to make, I still managed to overcome those and meet most of what I aimed to. Overall, I'm 70% satisfied with my work, the work I have produced in my F&P. My reasoning for this is, although I have a lot of problems throughout, I still managed to create a good short film about the subject that I originally wanted to do. I believe that the work I produced fit the criteria of being targeted at Gen Z audience, as it is firstly 3 minutes long, which is perfect, as it is proven that the attention span of Gen Z individuals is incredibly short. The music I chose for it was chosen around what Gen Z mainly would listen to, and the subjects at hand being such a popular issue throughout younger generations, in specific Gen Z. In conclusion, the work I produced shows feelings of sadness, grief, and overall raw emotion. I feel as though my F&P, although it's short, tells a story and has a deep meaning behind it. I'm proud of my film and satisfied with the final product, how the final product came out. All the skills I've developed during my F&P, everything I learned will help me massively in my future career in the creative industry. So this is the last bit of my F&P final evaluation. So that is everything. So now I'm going to move on to showing you my Wix website. So just click here. So this is my Wix website. My website is called Diverse Productions, as you can see here, and it has all the flags. So first I'm going to show you my 72-hour challenge. So this is the film just here. My film was here, and then onto my F&P. So it gives the description of my film, and then you just click and it directs you to YouTube, and you can do a full screen like this.